Welcome to Channel's Business Global with me, Juliana Olayinka, from our studios here in London. Coming up on today's show, a major shake-up in the UK's welfare policy under Keir Starmer's leadership. We'll dive into the controversial decision to restrict winter fuel payments, the economic reasoning behind it, and the backlash it's facing. Our Downing Street correspondent Simon Pusey will soon be joining me here in the studio to explore how the UK Prime Minister's economic policies are shaping the future of support for the elderly. And I was in Beijing last week covering President Tinubu's state visit to China, which aligned with the 9th Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, or FOCAC. Key meetings focused on enhancing economic ties, with key agreements signed in technology, infrastructure and industry. Chief Emmanuel Abel Edijala, the chairman and CEO of Charlton Capstone Integrated Limited, who joined the delegation in China, will be joining me from Warri to assess the impact of some of these agreements. Then later, I'll be looking back at some of the biggest business news stories of the week. But first, the House of Commons has passed a contentious government proposal to restrict winter fuel payments, limiting the benefit to pensioners who receive means-tested benefits, such as pension credit. The vote saw a significant majority in favour of the government's plan, despite efforts to block the changes. From this winter onwards, millions of pensioners who previously relied on the payment will no longer be eligible, raising widespread concerns about the impact on elderly individuals across the country. Winter fuel payments are annual tax-free payments designed to help older people manage heating costs during the colder months. Previously, the benefit was available to all pensioners, regardless of income. However, under the new changes, only those receiving means-tested benefits will qualify. The payments are seen as crucial support for vulnerable elderly people, especially during periods of rising energy prices.
Will he now publish the impact assessment before the House rises?
Prime Minister.
They've left a £22 billion black hole. Responsibility for this decision lies there. The only way to rebuild our country and invest in our public services and make sure everyone is better off is if we clear up their mess and deal with the £22 billion black hole.
Well, for more on this, I was earlier joined in the studio by our Downing Street correspondent, Simon Pusey. Simon, so the honeymoon period clearly over, the dust has settled from that historic victory, and now there's criticism coming from within government, not just backbenchers. This winter fuel payment, a blanket payment, which has now been transferred to means tested, has caused a lot of concern, especially as it's getting colder and that £22 billion deficit is not going anywhere fast.
Yeah, so there's a few sort of interesting ways to look at this. I think a lot of sort of people on the left of the Labour Party are saying this is yet another sign that the Labour Party is so centrist and there's not much difference between them and the Conservatives. Yeah. This sounds like a Conservative policy to sort of save some money. It's also not much money that they're saving. It's 1.4 billion a year. Right. And given that huge black hole that you said, the £22 billion black hole, according to Rachel Reeves, that the Conservatives left, you're thinking 1.4 billion, is that really worth the collateral? We're all talking about this. Why is... But you could also look at it that so the fuel payments, let's just get this straight, will fall from 11.4 million to 1.5 million this winter to pensioners. So it's quite a few million pensioners will lose out on this fuel payment.
A lot of them don't need it, apparently.
And well, you know, that's why they're talking about means testing this. They're saying, should the richest older people get this amount of money? You could also look at it that actually for a rebellion, the Labour Party have done pretty well out of this. The vote that took place, only 52 Labour MPs didn't take part. Only one voted against the government. That's not a rebellion, is it? One person voting against. They'd still passed easily. I just think that, yeah, with £22 billion that the government need to find, or at least that's the black hole. That's not to say that we're far more in debt than that. But only 1.4 billion a year, that just seems like, and we're all talking about this, is this money worth all of the politics around it? You've also got the child benefit cap that's coming up, the vote on that. So there's lots of things that So maybe the government are just taking this as a kind of like, we'll take this hit and we'll sort of move on. We've got such a big majority.
Fiscal responsibility, Sakir says.
Right, and Rachel Reeves and they do seem very conservative in their kind of approach here, and it doesn't seem really like a sort of Labour Party move. But they've kind of easily won that vote. Some people just didn't turn up, and only one Labour MP voted against it. So I think they could sort of put that down to be a win. I just don't know if it's really worth the collateral. 1.4 billion seems like a tiny amount of money to save for all of the talk around it. But meanwhile, let's look at the Tory party. They're going through obviously their leadership campaign. Mel Stride has been knocked out of the race, so he's the second person to knock. It's not sort of a surprise that he got as far as he did. I think most people thought he was going to lose out first. So the Robert Jenrick seems to be the person who looks most likely to get through.
Not Badenoch or Cleverly. They were early favourites.
Yeah, Kemi Badenoch. They're still in it. So we've got Robert Jenrick, Kemi Badenoch, James Cleverly, and Tom Tugendhat. But it looks like Robert Jenrick seems to be in sort of pole position.
Yeah.
And I don't know really if that's a surprise. There's still lots of things can change. They've got the Conservative Party conference coming up in October. That's when they're going to sort of make their pitch. But I think as we've seen with Liz Truss beating Rishi Sunak all those years ago now, the Conservative Party members like someone on the right, and Robert Jenrick, Kemi Badenoch, they are on the right of the party. But at the moment, it looks like it's Robert Jenrick's to lose. So.
Yep, the summer's over. It's getting colder, and there's going to be more fisticuffs, isn't there?
There is.
Thanks, Simon.
Thank you.
During a state visit to China last week, Nigerian President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Chinese President Xi Jinping strengthened bilateral ties, advancing strategic partnerships and economic cooperation between the two nations. The visit, held alongside FOCAC, culminated in the adoption of two key documents: the Beijing Declaration on Jointly Building an All-Weather China-Africa Community with a Shared Future for the New Era, and the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation Beijing Action Plan 2025 to 2027. President Tinubu's visit to Huawei Technologies, one of China's leading tech firms, signalled a strong focus on fostering technological cooperation between the two nations. Discussions during the visit centred around enhancing the nation's digital infrastructure through technology transfer and investment, with a particular emphasis on 5G technology, cybersecurity and digital economy initiatives. In addition to Huawei, the president visited the China Railway and Construction Corporation, a key player in the nation's infrastructure development. Talks with CRCC revolved around accelerating the completion of the Ibadan to Abuja segment of the Lagos to Kano rail project, highlighting Nigeria's interest in utilising Chinese expertise and investment to enhance its transportation network. Elsewhere, Nigeria and China convened the first Nigeria-China Economic Cooperation and Trade Conference, chaired by the Honourable Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edun. The event served as a platform for dialogue and collaboration aimed at addressing mutual economic challenges.
I'm a governor of the largest state in Nigeria, with 10% size of the total land space of Nigeria, sitting on 4 hydro power dams. We are basically agrarian. We have a lot of deposits of lithium, gold, and a lot of mineral resources. Let me congratulate the organizers of this first very important conference for bringing Nigeria and China together to discuss opportunities to foster development of our two nations. I also want to congratulate the Chinese for what they have achieved. A lot of people would not imagine what China is until they come. I have come to China in the last 1 month 2 times, and none of my stay was less than 10 days. So I've gone to a lot of states in China. I've seen how big China is in terms of agriculture and industrialization. So as the Minister of Finance of Nigeria has spoken, it's an opportunity for Chinese and Nigerians to foster relationships in the economic development of our great nation.
In 2003, Nigeria-China trade volume stood at $22.55 billion, and Nigeria's export to China reached $2.74 billion, while China's export to Nigeria stood at $20.17 billion. Between 2016 and 2023, our bilateral trade increased by over 146%. Accordingly, Nigeria has continued to be China's most important trade partner in Africa and second largest trade partner. While these applaudable statistics reflect a robust bilateral cooperation between our two countries, we are optimistic for deeper and stronger economic partnerships under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Currently, our imports from China are still significantly more than our exports. Our exports being majorly raw materials. We must therefore focus not only on increasing trade, but also changing the composition of our trade, so that Nigeria's exports more manufactured and more value-added products to China.
This is a partnership that spans decades with notable achievements across the power sector value chain, in line with Nigeria's goals of energy sustainability, energy expansion, energy transition, and economic development. In Nigeria, we are committed to achieving universal access, energy access by year 2060, with a short-term target under our vision 30-30-30 to attain 30 gigawatts of grid energy supply with a 30% renewable energy mix by year 2030, and a long-term goal of universal energy access to our people for economic development and improved livelihood. These targets present an opportunity for further partnership between the Chinese investment community and the Federal Republic of Nigeria to increase cleaner and more sustainable energy solutions penetration as we try to achieve energy security and meet the demands of our great population and our growing economy. To achieve this objective, the Federal Government of Nigeria has implemented a multi-pronged approach designed to tackle issues across the Nigeria electricity supply industry and the power sector value chain, and set the sector on a path to recovery and prosperity.
The summit also marked a significant milestone as Nigeria and China elevated their relationship to a comprehensive strategic partnership.
Nigeria and China are upgrading their relationship from a strategic partnership to a comprehensive strategic partnership, which means it's going to be longer term and it's going to cover many more sectors. So it's something that is going to add a lot of value. We can all see what China is already doing in Nigeria in terms of infrastructure, because the Belt and Road Initiative is about creating linkages through roads, road networks, rail, fiber optics, electricity, and so on and so forth. And this is the backbone of creating common markets. And of course, Africa is looking to create the African Continental Free Trade Area. As you know, West Africa, ECOWAS, is looking to create a common market with a common currency, a customs union. So this is going to help all of that, create a lot of value, create a lot of jobs. So some of the agreements that have been signed provide the requisite framework for creating that. So it's very important. We're very excited about it. China is a developing country still, just like Nigeria, so that's one common denominator. China is the largest country in the world in terms of population. Nigeria is soon to become the third largest country in the world. Again, you need government to create the environment, to create the opportunities for private sector to grow. And China also clearly believes in that. Government leads, provides the requisite background for businesses to prosper. And Nigeria believes in that as well. If you look at our constitution, look at chapter 2 of Nigeria's constitution, fundamental objectives and directive principles of state policy, it gives government the responsibility to controls certain sectors of the economy to create the value that would provide comfort for the people, to take them out of poverty. So in that, we share common values with China.
Coming up on Channel's Business Global, Chief Emmanuel Abel Edijala, the chairman and CEO of Chart and Capstone Integrated Limited, who joined the delegation in Beijing, will be joining me from Tory to discuss his firm's involvement in the groundbreaking $1 billion iron ore to steel project in Nigeria. And I'll be looking back at some of the biggest business news stories of the week. All of this after the break. Do stay with us. Welcome back to Channel's Business Global with me, Juliana Olayinka, from our studios here in London. In a moment, I'll be speaking with Chief Emmanuel Abel Edijala, the chairman and CEO of Chart and Capstone Integrated Limited. But until then, here's a breakdown of some of the biggest business news stories of the week. Boeing has reached a tentative agreement with its unions, offering a 25% pay increase over 4 years to about 32,000 workers. The deal, described as the most substantial in Boeing's history, comes just in time to avert a strike that could have halted production lines this week. While the agreement still requires ratification by union members, early feedback from representatives has been positive, suggesting a likely approval. The European Union's Court of Justice has upheld a €2.4 billion fine imposed on Google, marking the end of a long-standing legal battle over the tech titan's practices in promoting its Google shopping service. The significant ruling reaffirms the European Commission's 2017 verdict, which accused Google of abusing its dominant position in search to favour its own shopping service over competitors, thereby stifling competition. The Court of Justice dismissed Google's appeal, supporting the earlier findings that Google's practices were discriminatory and hindered competition on merit. In a significant boost to the UK's tech sector, Amazon Web Services has announced an investment of £8 billion over the next 5 years, aimed at enhancing the country's digital infrastructure. The funding will focus on building and operating new data centres across the country, reinforcing the firm's commitment to expanding its cloud computing and AI capabilities in Europe. The Labour government has welcomed the investment, stating it marks the beginning of an economic revival and underscores Britain's attractiveness as a place to do business. And now to my final topic. Chart and Capstone, a prominent player in the global industrial sector, has announced its involvement in a $1 billion iron ore to steel project in Nigeria, a venture poised to significantly boost the country's industrial and economic landscape. The ambitious project, a cornerstone of Nigeria's industrial growth strategy, aims to transform the local mining sector and position the country as a key player in steel production. Well, for more on this, I'm now being joined by Chief Emmanuel Abel Edijala, who is the chairman and CEO of Chart and Capstone. Chief Emmanuel joins me from Tory. Chief Emmanuel Abel Edijala, thank you so much for joining me on Channel's Business Global. Goodness me. A week does feel like yesterday because so much happened in Beijing. Before we get into the meat of what we want to discuss, please give me your overview of your experience in China, the state visit, the entourage, the delegation, the deals that were signed. How do you think we fared on the global stage yet again?
Well, Juliana, thanks for inviting me here. It's quite exciting. Good to know that we're back in Nigeria after that very exciting visit of Mr. President to China. It was really very, very, very successful. I want to say that the Nigerian delegation behaved well. There was no skirmish, nothing happened negatively. Within the background, a lot of this took place, and we were one of those that signed a very useful contract, and we're very happy that the FOCAC came, ended well. Nigeria had a lot of benefits, and we're here to share that today.
Absolutely. I want to talk about a story that kind of broke the internet, to be fair, over the weekend, and especially early this week, which was the $1 billion iron ore steel project. I know that your firm, Chart and Capstone, are heavily involved in this. Talk to me about the plans and how everything has been put together.
Yeah, so we originally are an O&G company, O&G meaning oil and gas. we've been set up since 2012. And we all know how saturated that industry, that sector is right now. So we were just looking at other sectors of the economy that can, bring huge value to the system. And we looked at the solid mineral sector. That's the next thing in Nigeria. I mean, that's where to go, actually. So basically, we had interactions with the ministry, all the agencies involved in solid minerals, and we got a veritable allocation of about 199 cadastral units of iron ore deposit around the Kogi axis. And that gave us an asset that the world wanted to see, because that's about 1 billion tons of iron ore in reserve. We didn't find it difficult to actually get an investor because the asset itself was huge. And Sinomac Heavy Equipment Company Limited, they actually are thinking of what to do with Africa, and they stumbled into me through one of their agencies in China, the China Association of Small and Medium Enterprises. And the working committee, led by one Professor Liu He, alongside another organization called the Belt and Road Economic Initiative Center, BRIPIC, led by Mr. Innocent Okonkwo, midwife this together. And when they came to Nigeria, we signed the MOU before we even left for China. They wanted me to come and see their facilities. And when I got to China, we went around, we saw more than 5 or 6 of their plants in operation. We even went with the Consular General of the Nigerian consulate in Shanghai. This is almost a private sector initiative.
Yeah.
Totally a private sector initiative. We took the gauntlet. We decided that we wanted to go into the solid mineral sector. We wanted to go into the steel sector. Don't forget, steel is the foundation for any infrastructural development. Without steel, nothing can go, nothing can move. It forms the framework for the superstructure. Now, we got it wrong, I think, in the early 80s when we put Ajakuta in place. And of course, the Russians came and they were unable to, put that mega plant into operation. And if you go to China today, there is nothing in China without steel. Everything, all the skyscrapers you see, the high-rise buildings, the train stations, every single thing relies on the superstructure of steel. So we realize that if we don't get the steel structure right, we can never get Nigeria going. And this is one opportunity to have one of the biggest steel companies in the world coming to partner with us. We are not getting money from the federal government. Let's get that clear. Government has done its own. They've given us the allocation, and we are good to go. Our partners have come here. We have gone to China. We have signed all our payment instruments. In fact, China is giving them about 85% of the money for this construction. So everything is done. As we speak, we are almost oversubscribed, because at the what do you call it now? The event in Beijing, I met with the MD of First Bank, and of course they're also trying to buy into this project. So we only have about 15% to give away. So we're oversubscribed as we speak. So it's a very good one for our people. This investment will take at least 10,000 people out of the job market. And you know what that means for our country. When 10,000 people are out of the market, it means that out of the job market, it means that, ancillary services will also come in, and many others will be engaged. So it's a good one. It's a win-win for Nigeria. It's a win-win for mine company, Shard and Capstone. It's also a win-win for the Chinese, because they are also very happy. They want to extend some of their technology to Africa. Yeah. Many people see China as maybe a country with, all sorts of dodgy. No, that's not correct.
That's what we want. That's what we're hoping for. You said win-win. We're still going to wait and see, because, of course, there are still lots of people still very suspicious of China's intentions in Africa. It may be great for you, Chief, but we also want it to be great for your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren. So let's make sure those I's are dotted and those T's are crossed. And we will be inviting Chart and Capstone back onto the show so we can go through the implementation of this project, because it's not just the pledge, it's actual doing that matters. But thank you so much for your time and expertise, Chief Emmanuel Abel Edijala, who is the chairman and CEO of Chart and Capstone Integrated Limited, that $1 billion iron ore to steel project that was trending earlier this week. It was his firm that was behind it. Thank you so much for your time today.
I do appreciate you. Thank you.
Well, sadly, that's all we have time for today. But as always, do get in touch with your comments and suggestions. I'll see you at the same time next week for more in-depth business analysis on Channels Business Global. Goodbye.